Hi, welcome to Moose Jaw This Week, and welcome to Whiteboy Slim's studio. We're here to talk to him about the release of his latest album, which is Box? What Box? Which is a wonderful time. Maurice, welcome.
Well, thanks. It's really good to be back again. It's been a while. Well, since the last album, I guess.
But you have wonderful eclectic music. You said you have, I think, 5 albums plus an electronic. You have to explain that other.
Well, it's an EP. It's a short album. There were 4 tracks on it. It was well, we kind of salvaged from a project that I was doing in 2011 with a singer from Brooklyn, and we recorded about 4 songs, and long distance stuff is really difficult. Back and forth to Brooklyn was kind of, and it was a side project for both of us, and we both got really busy. So I just sort of did it as a digital EP, and so I don't really count that as part of the canon.
the body of work.
The body of work.
That's
right.
yeah. So, but this is pretty exciting for you. You're having a big release coming up for the album, and people are invited to attend an actual live performance of it. And that's pretty exciting. You want to tell people about that?
Well, there's 2 actually. There's one coming up in Regina on April the 7th at Bushwhacker, which is our kind of Regina home away from home, and we're going to be performing the album, and I'm going to have special deals for marketing. I'm going to actually, the deal is that at the CD openings, if you come and you buy a copy of the CD, you get one of the previous releases thrown in for free. So,
Mine, the one I remember most is that the I don't know the name of the CD, I've forgotten it. But if you talk about the woman who's a kind of a wild woman, a southern woman. It's a
Krispy Kreme woman.
Yes, Krispy Kreme woman. That's quite a piece of music.
Well, thank you. That was actually written after a conversation with a couple of young ladies from Nashville, and Nashville is apparently the home of Krispy Kreme, and we were talking about donuts and the relative merits of Krispy Kreme versus Tim Hortons. And one of the young ladies said, "My favorite way of eating them is to lick the crumbs off somebody's breast." And I thought, that's such a great line. I said, "Come back tomorrow and I'll have a song." And I had the song I had the song written and demoed by the next day.
And, of course, your music covers a wide span. You're a blues artist, of course,
Yeah.
but do you have interest in other genres as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my interest in music started when I was barely a toddler, because my dad, Harvey, had this incredible record collection. I mean, it was huge, and I mean, at the time, it included 78s and LPs and everything from classical music to R&B, Louis Armstrong, jazz, things like that. I mean, I think Dad just was, would find an album that he thought was interesting, and he would pick it up and see if he liked it, because there was Marty Robbins country music and all sorts of stuff like that, and it was all over the place. So my mom says I was dancing around the living room when I was about 3 or 4, and just to whatever was on. And so I absorbed all that stuff, and because there was lots of Louis Armstrong and there was Ray Charles records and stuff, I latched onto that stuff really, really early. And that eclecticism. I've sort of tried very hard to keep that alive, because a lot of the blues people I really like Big Bill Broonzy or Lonnie Johnson, would record pop songs of the day as well. And B.B. King did a bunch of Latin flavored records in the late 50s and things like that. So to me, that's just part of the blues tradition, because it's always, blues artists have always gone, wow, that's really cool, let's do that, and add that. So I just, every time I hear if something speaks to me, I'll write songs about it, or it'll find its way in. And like the reggae stuff on the new album, on my first CD, there was a song called "I Never Lied to You, Baby," and when I was in Toronto, I was playing in a band with my brother and a bass player named Roy Clark, who wasn't the country Roy Clark. He was a Jamaican. He was the bass player for the Reggae Cowboys, who was a band that did country and western covers as reggae stuff. And so we had this side project. We just sort of fooled around and did a couple of gigs. And I had this song, I Never Lied to You, Baby. And Roy, because he was a reggae player, started playing reggae bass lines in it. And so when I finally got around to recording it on my first album, I kept that reggae thing in. I thought, wow, this really fits really nicely. And so when it came to do this one, and we were looking for material, and I have notebooks and notebooks full of songs, and I pulled out a couple of ska and reggae tunes, and the idea was we would have about 20 songs and then cut them down to a normal size CD. But we ended up with 25 songs and or 26, something like that. And Larry Goosehouse, my co-producer, and I were sitting there and going, we can't get rid of any of these. These are all, I mean, they all work so well. It's like there's nothing that we can cut, because we'd already taken off a couple that we didn't like. So I thought, what the heck, we'll just do 2 CDs. And so we made it a double, and all the more conventional blues is on the first CD, which is called Befrienditation, or sorry, Bluesification, and all the sort of outside kind of stuff is on the second CD is called Transgenred.
So you have a lot of fun doing this stuff,
yeah.
And I was just thinking as we were talking about you've had good success, and people listen to you talk and you say, well, yeah, when I was in Toronto doing this, or when we were working with this musician or whatever, and yet you're back here in Saskatchewan and making a success of your music. Which artists don't necessarily have that opportunity to do, and yet you miss Toronto madly, but you are able to be successful here. You found some musicians who have a same interest and the desire to play the kind of music you like too. So that's like Dustin Boyer is. He's a fantastic musician.
Yeah, he's young, but he's really experienced, and he's really knowledgeable. I mean, he came to me sort of through other people that I'd played with, because Daryl McKinnon was his high school music teacher, and he played in jazz band with him. So Dustin had this background of jazz and other genres that was way beyond his years, because he's got that kind of mind where he likes the idea of being eclectic, and if something speaks to him, if he really likes the music, he listens to it. So traveling on the road with him is really interesting, because we'll be listening to, Norwegian heavy metal, and then the next CD will be, I introduced him last summer to Zydeco, so he's like got this Buckwheat Zydeco live album that he's like playing all the time, and then it'll go from that to Buddy Guy to another heavy metal band or something like that, and he's got Celtic stuff. It just, he's got that same kind of eclectic thing going on, and he's willing to learn, and he's willing to work. And so, having come through Daryl McKinnon, who used to play guitar with me, it was kind of a very organic kind of thing, like a family. It was like passing down the family tradition, So yeah, and I mean, Saskatchewan is a great place to be, but there are challenges, because there aren't as many musicians. I mean, there's probably more musicians in downtown Toronto than the entire population of Saskatchewan, and the distances are so great that sometimes you'll have like a great bass player living in Saskatoon, but you can never get together because it's a 2.5 hour drive. So there are challenges, but the internet makes things really easy. I mean, way easier than it was back in the day when I went to Toronto.
Did it exist even back then?
Not exactly, no.
So there's 2 things I want to touch on. One, you mentioned your father, and of course, how I originally met you was that I worked at L&S Supermarket, where your dad, Harvey, was one of the co-owners and managers of it. and that's been quite a change in the city's landscape. Of course, in your book, your book that you wrote about the history of Moose Jaw and stuff, it's touched on there. How do you feel what happened when you heard that it had collapsed? And
it was quite a shock. I first found out about it. I was actually driving down Main Street. I was driving up Main Street after having had lunch with my mom, and I looked over and I saw there was something going on. So I pulled over across the street, parked the car, and took a look at it, and you could see the cracks, and it was obvious that there was something seriously wrong. And I was actually sort of shaken quite a bit that first day, because as I told somebody later that day, I said it's like I'm watching the last vestiges of my childhood sort of starting to crumble, because I basically grew up in that store. And you know, it was one of those constants, even when it was no longer a store. You know, it was only one of 2 Art Deco buildings in the city, and it was, I mean, and you know, with my interest in the history too, it was really sad. And then it was also, I mean, it was really bad that it happened at the same time as the fire on High Street. And it's really wrenching to see some of these, you know, 100-year-old, well, supermarket was only about 80 years old, but 100-year-old buildings becoming parking lots. You know, Moose Jaw is going to be the city of parking lots pretty soon if we don't do something about it.
Well, that's for sure. Now we're into our last minute or so here. Let's just refresh people's minds about your new album coming out. Box? What box?
Double album, blues, and a whole bunch of other stuff. It's available online. You can get it at my website, www.whiteboyslim.com, all one word. It's on iTunes. It's been on iTunes for a couple of days. It's number 33 of the iTunes newest 100 blues releases, so it's doing quite well on iTunes. It's going to be in all the all the online things. We're doing the April 7th. We're doing the CD release at Bushwhackers, and May 30th. I'm told, we haven't signed the contracts yet, but May 30th we're also doing a CD release at Coffee Encounters here in town. So.
And people can certainly come out and enjoy that music. There's lots of interesting things, and who knows, maybe the stories of the Moose Jaw's sudden depreciation of facilities might end up in being one of your songs, because it's about the blues and it's about loss. And
I can't see how the next CD is not going to have at least one song about the supermarket falling into itself. Yeah. So.
Well, thanks very much, and break a leg with your, as they say in the theater. And when we come back, we're going to deal and stay with the theater theme. And I think you'll find a very interesting young man that we're going to talk to after the break. So don't go away.